I'm just going to go for the fastball on this, the most obvious question then. Do we now understand that AI models could be conscious?
Thanks so much for having me and for asking this important question, Joe. I think we need to look at what they said in the paper themselves, and that is that they've used this very provocative term conscious, but they are being very limited in what they mean about consciousness. So it's a very interesting philosophical question, even religious question when we're talking about consciousness. But here in this paper, they are limiting it to a functional description of with this, as they describe the J space, this separate context that's informing the outputs. Yeah. So what they are really giving us is this window into understanding how the models work. And for me, that's the most exciting part. So while there's this really interesting side, very provocative conversation, they have also explicitly directed us to the critical point here. And that is we can now start to better govern these machines because we can better understand their processes.
To that end, when switching off the J space, Claude had more trouble reasoning, which is fascinating here. Maybe there's a new potential to put a governor on these models. I guess to your point, the J space actually caught Claude in making up fake data. Is the J space what will save us, Miriam?
What will save us is understanding that there is such a thing as the J space, that what we are understanding is that Anthropic has showed us Claude has developed its own process for giving us these very robust, thoughtful answers that we are coming to rely on in really pivotal systems across society. So what we have to understand is that there are these depths of process and reasoning that are leading to these outputs. And what that tells us is we cannot continue to only test outputs. We have to understand that there is this whole J space, and we're probably going to learn more as time goes on. This is a first step in what I believe will be a really important expedition. I mean, they have so nicely phrased this as the top layer of the ocean where so many of our brains operate. And so I think, again, it can get complicated thinking of the depths of the ocean and consciousness. But I think the important point they're trying to tell us is we've been operating at a surface level, and there's a great depth that we need to be more transparent on as we start to understand it more so that we can govern it.
Fascinating. In a couple of instances, Anthropic walked us through some of the testing that it did with the J space. It asked it to do a math problem, which Claude accomplished very quickly, showing step-by-step reasoning only in the J space. It gave just a final answer on the top layer of the ocean, but when we looked underneath, we actually saw the work. We saw Claude showing its math in the J space. Then things got to be a little bit more abstract. Anthropic told Claude to think about the Golden Gate Bridge while also copying an unrelated sentence. And Claude copied the sentence, but behind the scenes, the bridge in California, those two words popped up in the J space. And it even showed that it was thinking about its own thinking. Claude has some control over filling the J space with ideas. And this is what gets people wondering if, in fact, it could spawn its own consciousness. How long will it be before we know, Miriam?
Well, I think we need to applaud the fact that this research has been coming out. You know, Anthropic has been continuing to keep us posted on these developments. And while it's really interesting and informative to be focusing on these words like consciousness and to be thinking about what this means and how it connects vis-a-vis our own thinking, what really is the point here is that we can better understand the processes. Understanding that we cannot, again, as I said, simply be looking at outputs. This will be really important as we get to the next phase of AI, which many organizations are already in with agentic AI. And as you know, Joe, we'll be increasingly removing humans from the process. So in this transparent report, we can see that there was a whole nother subset of reasoning that the simple outputs would not have been indicative of. We need to continue to support this kind of research. We need to applaud the fact that that this is what's happening in this organization, that they are sharing what they are learning very broadly. It's the transparency here that is key, and that will build the trust. As you know, Joe, there's not a lot of trust for AI in society right now. It is
No,
not
that's right.
something, a topic that is engendering a lot of goodwill or trust. We know that there's an overwhelming concern that is more fearful of AI. The general public has more
That's right.
fear, positive sentiment about AI. And what we should look at this report as doing is an important step forward in building that trust by being transparent. So while it's using evocative words that are really interesting and a great point of question for philosophers and scientists about
Mm-hmm.
consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
what it's actually doing is helping us get into the layers of the ocean and better understand what are these systems informing us. And as we increasingly take humans out of the process through agentic AI, this will be
Yeah.
critical so that we can understand what are the underlying root causes that are informing these outputs.
Well, see, this is why we called you, Miriam. It's very easy to fall into the Skynet trap with this story, and I'm fascinated by the way you're choosing your answers. So, last time we spoke was before the White House started testing and grading things like Mythos, Fable, and other AI models. That it's basically become the control center. As we know, the most recent model of Mythos is still under wraps because they saw this potential for a jailbreak. Could the J space help officials, whether in the administration or anywhere else, grade the safety and efficacy of an AI model before it goes public?
Again, I think this is an important step forward, and it's great that this is being shared with the general public in addition to the government. The more all of us understand what AI is, what its capabilities are, and its
Yeah.
limitations, that's a key part, not just what it's capable
Does
of, but
every
what
AI model have a J space, or is this an Anthropic thing?
well, it's a great question. And that's something we should encourage more companies to be transparent about. They should also be doing this testing. I hope and trust they are, and they should be sharing it publicly. That is the key thing that we should be embracing here. The more they are
Right.
learning and sharing with the public, the better we can understand what it is, the better we can govern it, the more trust we can be bringing through this transparency.